Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Danish. In today's segment of Reportage, I am joined by human rights activist and author Mr. Harsh Mander to talk about his recently released book, Fatal Accidents of Birth, which is published by Speaking Tiger. The book documents 21 stories who fell prey to the atrocities based on gender, caste, or religion in contemporary India. More from the author. So, just for the viewers, explain it. Why did you feel necessary to document these 21 stories?
The idea of the book actually, to some extent, started with Rohit Vemula. His letter. Rohit Vemula was a very talented Dalit scholar in Hyderabad University, and in 2016, I think, he took his life. But before he did it, he wrote a letter to the world, a very moving letter, where he spoke about his dreams, which would never be fulfilled. He spoke about uh, the very difficult life he led. But he wrote somewhere that whatever I did, I could not escape the fatal accident of my birth. And uh, I think, in some ways, that single line is perhaps the most profound indictment of what we have not accomplished in the 75 plus years of India's freedom. That we continue to live in a country where the accident of your birth uh, significantly determines the rest of your life chances. And it can be either an accident that is fatal, uh, as it was for Rohit Vemula, to whom I've also dedicated this book, or uh, it can be, highly beneficial, that accident, if you're born in a place of relative privilege. And so I thought I'd put together a set of stories that I've written over many years, which are real life stories of people who have lived very difficult lives, with discrimination, with violence, communal violence, with social stigma, with uh, deprivations of hunger, with with other stigmas of sexual orientation, or the profession that you've undertaken, uh, and most importantly, the discrimination of caste and religious identity. So it is a set of stories, of absolutely real life stories, where I have fictionalized nothing, but I've told them in the way that I would have written a short story. So they are literary, expressions. And if I could add a little more, I've written a number of books, I think nearly 25 books. But if there's one book actually which is closest to my heart, it is this one. Because through these 21 stories, I tell the story of my India today without any commentary. I don't have to, I don't have to, I'm not, I'm not describing, I'm not commenting on the situation. But by telling these stories together, I hope we are uh, uh, able to understand what is happening in India. And one last thing, Danish, when you were asking me to explain, it was also written because, um, I think empathy, this understanding feeling the pain of the other is something that we've lost. We call it fraternity in the constitution, and fraternity, or bandhuta in Hindi, is really the idea that I uh, that we are bound. We may be very different. We may follow different religions, ways of life, caste, language, but we are bound to and with each other. So if you suffer injustice or pain, I feel that pain is my own. But empathy is only possible, I realize, uh, empathy can be an act of feeling, but it has to be preceded with an act of understanding. You know, I need to understand what you're experiencing before I can feel your pain. And we have built a world where the walls between us are so high. And I talk about it in my book as well, that homeless people are people we see every single day if you live in a city, except maybe during the lockdown. There won't be a day when you haven't seen homeless people, and yet we know so little about their lives, we care even less. So I'm also telling these stories as a vehicle for empathy, for understanding the lives of people who are very different from us. And through that, I hope building our capacities for empathy. Yes, please go ahead.
So we claim to be one of the wealthiest states of the global village. Why have we failed to protect our own people?
India, uh, I think the Indian middle class and the rich classes are among the most uncaring in the world. There's a profound lack of empathy and solidarity that we feel with others who are less fortunate than us. And I say this strongly. I travel to many parts of the world. I have not seen a society today where we are so comfortable with intense suffering and deprivation just before our eyes. Our capacity to see and look away. And I ask myself often, why is it that we have become so uncaring? And there are moments like, say, the lockdown, when 30 million people, uh, workers, uh, migrant workers, walked hundreds of kilometers in the hot summer months with their small children, facing police batons. Uh, and many people said, but where did all these people come from? A- And and if we look at a middle class person's life, uh, who I mean, who delivers the milk at your door, who puts the newspaper at your door, who comes in and cleans your floors, who looks after your children, who cooks your food, who drives you to work, who offers you vegetables and fruit at inexpensive, who right through our day we are surrounded by working class people. We don't even look at them as people. We see them only as instruments to provision our needs. So I think that the Indian middle class, we have a very long history of caste, at least 2,000 years. And caste as a moral idea is basically the idea that the accident of your birth legitimately must determine the rest of your life chances. That is really the idea of caste. uh, that where you are born determines whether I will even, sit with you, whether you have the right to a decent life of dignity, with what jobs you can do, whether you can study or not, how far you can study. Everything is determined not by the qualities of your character, the metal of your, not by the sharpness of your intelligence, but by the accident of your birth. So there's the idea of caste, but I think there's also what I would call the neoliberal idea as a moral idea, which is greed, that greed is good. So the neoliberal idea mixed up with the old idea of caste, I think has created this extremely uncaring society. And therefore, India actually has done, we have among the most privatized healthcare systems in the world. The kind of you government schools compared to schools where children of private schools where people study, the gap is so large, and we are comfortable with that gap. It is a cultural comfort with inequality, which I think marks us out as a people, and which is what I want to respond to with a book like Fatal Accidents of Birth.
So, in my limited understanding, it is basically the lack of justice which leads to the other incident. And when I was reading this book, in all these
Mm,
21 cases,
mm.
justice has not been served
Yes,
because accused, the perpetrators, they know if we do any wrong, there will be no justice. We will not get caught. Is
yes.
this the sense of not getting caught, the sense of no justice? Is this giving way to the other crimes?
No, there is what you're calling this idea. It is, it can be called a sense of impunity, an assurance of impunity. So in my India of today, if I am from a privileged caste, I know that I can insult and discriminate against and be violent against people of disadvantaged castes. If I belong to the majority religious community, I can behave, uh, and the kind of hate speech that has become so much a normal part of our lives. You can call for genocide, you can call for mass rape, and nothing is going to happen to you. You're likely, in fact, to get uh, uh, some sort of important position within the political party, and so on. So I think that uh, lynching, the period of lynching that we saw, one of the remarkable things about lynching, and I've sort of now in the Karwan-e Mohabbat gone all across the country, visited more than 100 families who have been lynched, and we're working with them. One of the things that has characterized most lynching is actually the videographing of the lynching. And the videographing is by the perpetrator. Now, just imagine that you are videographing, you're committing a crime, which actually could send you to jail for the rest of your life or send you to the gallows, and you are videographing it. So what does that mean? That means that A, you feel you're very proud of what you've done. You feel you're not, you're far from being treated as a criminal. The system is going to treat you like a hero. And as we've seen, ministers garlanding people who have been convicted for lynch killing. Um, and you are assured that you will never be punished. That is why you're creating your own record of your crimes. I think that is an illustration of precisely what you said. You're so assured that you can, to a person of disadvantaged caste, gender, religion, sexuality, I can do what I feel like as a person of privilege, and I will never suffer negative consequences. In fact, I will be a hero.
This is what you have written in the introduction of the book. So, this sense of not getting caught, it plays an
Yes.
important role.
Yes, I think that if we had a criminal justice system which was,
And had we punished few of these peoples,
yes,
things would have been completely different.
absolutely,
Like
just
you
take,
have mentioned in the Ishrat Jahan case, again,
yes,
they were arrested, at least they were arrested 4 5 years later after the incident
yes.
happened.
Mhm. No, and even there, Jahan, I mean, in all of the cases that I've described in this book, uh, justice has not happened. And in fact, very often the reverse happens, is that the person who's discriminated is also then treated as the perpetrator of crime. And the perpetrator of crime is seen as somehow the victim of the crime. It's in a very strange, again, talking about lynching, to bring it to a more general level. Say you've been lynched in the name of cow, that you have allegedly killed a cow. uh, the mob lynches you, but the system treats you as if, by definition, because you are being attacked for harming a cow, you are the guilty party. And the crowd, yes, it did get a little sort of, its sentiments were hurt, so it perhaps did a little more. But the crowd who lynched you is really the victim of your crime. because you allegedly did something to a cow.
Another
Likewise, the
important,
allegation.
another important thing that I have witnessed in these crimes, when you lynch a person, there are at
Yeah,
least 100, 200 people around you. They do not
yeah,
stop it. Instead of stopping it, they are recording it on their cell phones.
yeah. Yeah, so this is, I mean, when I say that the Indian middle class and rich and middle class are in a place of extreme moral crisis, this is exactly what I mean, is that our sense of, our sense of justice is perhaps one or two steps away. Our sense of just ordinary human compassion. You're seeing an innocent, unarmed man being beaten to death before your eyes, and you either participated in it or you watch it, the bystander. We've all been reduced actually to either in this country, more and more of us are either becoming sort of perpetrators of hate or bystanders as victims are being attacked. And yes, that is what is resulting in this impunity.
And what you have mentioned in the book, that we tend to look away from these incidents
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of intervening, instead of interfering in these things. We tend to look away.
I think that we to look away is primarily what we do. But I am getting more and more worried in India as it is changing. I think that even, a significant number of us may not join the lynch mob, but we are happy that it is happening. So in a sense, I am outsourcing my hate to the lynch mob, but I endorse what the lynch mob is doing. I endorse
Silently, I'm silent,
silently.
but I'm silently endorsing what the mob is doing
Mob is doing, or the discrimination against a Dalit. Uh, uh, I am endorsing it. Uh,
by being
so, uh,
silent.
so I'm either being silent because I'm indifferent, which is bad enough. And Elie Wiesel is a Holocaust survivor who said the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. So indifference is a huge culpability. Yes, but I'm worried that a lot of us are not even remaining silent only because we are indifferent or we are fearful of speaking out, but because many of us are actually endorsing what happened. We may not join in physically, but we are happy that it is happening. Yeah.
And and we are being completely silent on all these issues, be it the
Yeah.
Dalit being discriminated on, um, caste based, or a Muslim based on his religion. I just want
Yeah.
to understand from you. You have been on the ground, meeting these people, meeting these victims. You have heading many organizations and working with other organizations as well. What is the most common factor in your view for which these crimes take place? Is it gender, is it caste, or is it religion? Which is the most common factor?
See, I think it's hard to say. I think all of these three work together. Uh, this I would underline that historically in India, for more than 2000 years, caste and gender have been the main axis for extreme violence uh, against people of disadvantaged castes and genders. I mean, the why we I don't think we acknowledge it, but we've been a very violent society to people who are disadvantaged by caste and gender. But over the last 100, years during the colonial rule, the third axis of religious identity has come in, and uh, and increasingly, uh, partition happened. We chose India chose, despite all the violence of partition and the separation of Pakistan, that India would be a country assuring equal citizenship in every way, equal belonging to its Muslim citizens. We know that the Hindu right organizations, the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha, never agreed with that idea. We've reached a point where people of this ideology are holding all the top important constitutional positions in this country, and their attack on the constitutional idea of India is, the way they're attacking it is an open regime of violence, uh, hate and violence against India's Muslims, and to some extent to Christians, because they are the ones who, in the Hindu right, believe that they should not belong, they don't belong equally to this country and can live here only as second class citizens. So my answer is really that caste and gender are historically and continue to be major sources of violence, but
They
religious
work
identity
simultaneously with each other.
and if you overlap, but religious identity has now sort of is increasingly overtaking or accompanying these as making you vulnerable for violence.
So explain it to for the viewers. Why did we fail to stop these people who want to change these, who are now at holding high position in the high constitutional positions? Was it our failure at the first place to identify them?
No, I think that, see, there, uh, to go back to our freedom struggle, uh, the mainstream of India's freedom struggle was led by Gandhiji. But there were other streams, and there was the left, of which the most iconic representative is Bhagat Singh, perhaps. So we had the left streams. We had Subhash Chandra Bose and the Indian National Army. And we had Dr. Ambedkar and his struggles and the struggles that he led. Now, if I look at all of these four streams, they disagreed on many things. But if there's one thing that they all agreed upon, it was that India would be a country of equal belonging to its Muslim, Christian, Dalit citizens of all diversity, color, creed, and so on. And the Hindu right and the Muslim League did not agree with this idea in different ways. The Hindu right never reconciled with this idea. But and it was for this opposition that Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated. Uh, when Gandhiji was killed, in a sense, the country was stunned into all the violence that was tearing across the land came to an end. And I think in the first generation, we believed that we had put this behind us, but we had not. And sadly, it was during the build up to the opposition to Indira Gandhi's regime, her authoritarianism, and the corruption of her regime, when Jayaprakash Narayan led a movement to fight. He did invite the RSS to come out of the shadows to join this battle, and that was the moment that they were waiting for. Once they came out of the shadows, they joined the fight against the emergency. They joined the first Janta government. Uh, by that was the moment that they wanted, and then that was in the mid 70s. Then through the 80s, through the Ram Janmabhoomi movement and the Ayodhya movement, they were able to restore their place more and more in the center of India's public life. I would, Danish, say that uh, uh, we need to recognize that that uh, that is not just the RSS, BJP, Hindu Mahasabha, and their uh, organizations that are responsible for bringing us to this point. It is also the failure of the so-called secular parties to consistently stand with the values uh, of secular democracy. So, some of the worst riots have happened under Congress governments, for instance. So, how much justice justice did they ensure as well?
That was my
Is
point, because
yeah,
justice was never served in any case, right from 1947. Had we
yeah,
served
absolutely.
justice to the victim, we would not have come to this stage where we are now. It's the
So
absence of justice that
yeah,
basically, that's why we are here. The absence of justice is the main key.
yeah, you're right. I think it was probably under Nehru that we had the best compliance with the idea, the secular idea of India, the idea of equal rights. I grew up, I was born about, yeah, 8 years after independence, and I grew up in a much more idealistic India, where this kind of hatred and violence was not part of our public life. But it is true that that consistently uh, the secular idea has been betrayed in various ways by secular parties, which is why they have facilitated where we've reached as a country. But I still feel that it's dangerous to make an equivalence that then what is the difference between, say, the BJP and parties which are now formed the India Alliance? Uh, there is a fundamental difference. They both might have on different occasions been communal in practice, but for one, uh, their communal practice is a betrayal of their ideology, and for other, the communal practice is their ideology, right? So we have to recognize that the much bigger evil is for those whom hatred and inequality based on identity is their ideology, and we must fight them because that is they break out of the four walls of the constitution itself. But we need to hold secular parties much more accountable for adhering to in with much greater integrity to the values of the constitution than they have done.
I was coming to the same point. BJP, on the one hand, they are completely firm on their ideology and they propagate it without any remorse, without any shame, without anything. They completely propagate it. On the other hand, you have the secular party led by the Congress party. They have completely given up on its secular ideological on their secular ideology. They have completely given on it. In fact, they are ashamed of saying that we are this is a secular party. They do not propagate their ideas. Like you have said, it's the Congress party which has to be hold more responsible than the BJP.
I wouldn't say more, but yes, I think that their culpability is very much there. Uh, the Hindu right, Hindutva right, has been for 100 years, and next year RSS will complete 100 years. They have consistently fought for their ideology and they've been true to that ideology. The secular parties after independence have, and especially after Nehru's passing, have consistently uh, uh, betrayed their ideology. And you're right, absolutely, that today I see the parties like the Congress and of the India Alliance. The majority of them are not speaking out on the Muslim question, and they're not speaking out loud and clear about their defense of the idea of secularism. Uh, when they have, as they did in Karnataka in the state elections, as they did in Telangana, in fact, they electorally benefited from it as well. But where they played soft Hindutva as the so-called soft Hindutva of Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, they lost and they deserved to lose because they were being dishonest. Uh, there was a public debate recently where I was speaking along with Manoj Jha, the member of parliament. He said something very interesting. He said, I don't understand what this soft Hindutva is. He said, is there a soft devil and then a hard devil? The devil is a devil. Just like that, there is only one Hindutva. There's no such thing as soft and hard. So if you are your ideology is of secular democracy, of equal rights and religious freedom, and on the other hand, you pretend to uh, actually support the majoritarian Hindutva ideology in the name of fighting it. It is deceitful and it is wrong and it deserves to fail. So I hope that in the elections that are unfolding, our secular parties uh, have the courage to speak out against the hate and the violence and the discrimination that Muslims, Christians, Dalits, Adivasis, women are facing, and to say it loud and clear with courage of conviction.
I do hope, sir, that we do see that happening in this upcoming elections. I must say that we are terribly running out of time. It has been over 40 minutes, and my Zoom meeting is showing last 1.5 minute left. Let's conclude this intriguing discussion here, and let me hold your book once more for the viewers so that they buy this book and read it and understand about the just system of India and these 21 wonderful stories that you have jotted together. Thank you very much for talking to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Danish. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.